Okay. Hello, everyone. Okay. Hello, everyone. Uh, Hi. So, welcome to Cracku's live stream. So now that CAT is over, now people will be wondering how to go about their PI preparation. So today we have two panelists in front of us, Souvik Chakraborty and Ananda Chowdhury. They are students of SJMSOM of 2023 batch, and they are here to guide you and take you through your PI preparation so that you can land up in a great B school this year. So we welcome you, Souvik and Ananda, and we are happy to have you here.
Thank you, Pramit. Happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks.
So before we start with the questions that people are often having in their mind, so let's have a small presentation on SJMSOM, which Souvik and Ananda will take you through.
Right, Pramit. So I'll be sharing my screen right now.
Sure. Thank you.
Is my screen visible?
Yes, it's visible.
Okay, so good evening, everyone, and welcome all who are present. And we are representing Shailesh J. Mehta School of Management, IIT Bombay. And we are ranked 5th in the QS World Rankings out of all the business and management studies schools in India, and ranked 10th in the NIRF rankings, as you can see. Going ahead, I will briefly be taking you through the admissions process. We all believe, we assume that you have appeared for CAT 2021, and if you are clearing the eligibility criteria of SJMSOM, which is available on our website, you should definitely consider applying for our college. The form is live right now, and the deadline is 31st of January 2022. Post that, in the phase 1 shortlist, PI calls would be given. This year, we do not have any VAT or GD for our college. The entire process will be virtual on a gamified platform called Gather, and the PI process is scheduled to be held from 2nd of March to 6th of March 2022. Post that, in the phase 2 shortlist, the final offers will be rolled out. So it's a pretty simple process, and the forms are live. We all hope that you would go and apply. That's all. And provided you get stuck somewhere and you have any other queries, you should consider following us across all our social media handles and contact us or our student representatives on the numbers which are given, or email us to admissions@sjmsom.in. So that's it from our side.
Thank you, Ananda, for sharing this wonderful PPT about SJMSOM. So now we'll start with the questions. So I think the audience is eagerly waiting to get the answers to these questions. So we'll do one thing. We'll ask question alternatively to each one of to both of you, and if you have to add on the top of what the other said, so you can just add it, right? So we'll start with the first question. It's for you, Souvik. So what is unique about the SJMSOM personal interview panel?
Okay, thank you for the question. So what's very unique is that, so generally the SJMSOM panel consists of 3 members. One of them is a faculty from the School of Management. One of them is an alumni of ours. And the other one is typically a professor from the engineering departments from IIT Bombay. So how it works is that whichever department you belong to, somebody from that department from IIT Bombay will be present on the panel. And this is tentative. I mean, this is what generally is followed. So that's very unique because it helps the panelists assess your competency better, as well as you can speak about what projects you have done or what kind of technical competencies you possess. You can speak freely about that and have a conversation. So it works both ways, and I think that's something very unique to SJMSOM.
And to add on to that, I believe what makes us more unique is no other college has such a panel which is mapped according to candidate's profile. So we're not interested in a generic cookie cutter profile. We actually want to know every candidate to their core strengths and not focus on their weaknesses or ask them generic questions, which is why we also have in our application form a field where we ask them SOP related questions. So this is what I think makes us more unique.
Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. Yes, sir. So we'll move on to the next question. And this question, I think it will be better to get a view from both of you because it's about personal experiences. So first, Ananda can start. So the question is, how was your PI experience at SJMSOM PI round? So after Ananda, you can share Souvik your experience.
Right. So I'm not saying this because I'm a part of this college, but in my view, the admission experience and especially the PI experience at SJMSOM was one of the best because of the panel, as we just mentioned. The alum who was there, he saw my profile, and I am a B.Tech mechanical engineer. And he asked me questions from the automotive industry and subjects related to the automotive industry. So he gauged my interest on that. If I actually know the core depths of the subject, as well as form opinions based on maybe the vehicle scrappage policy which came around, the business implications of those, how it will affect the industry, how the semiconductor shortage issues would affect the industry. So he wanted to know me and my profile in a holistic manner. So overall, the panel made me feel just like home. It did not feel like they were drilling me. And this is something very unique about the SJMSOM panel as well. No one will actually drill you. They actually want to make you at home comfortable and bring the best out of you. So it was a very good experience. I think Souvik can mention and share his.
Great. Thank you for your answer. Souvik, now you can go.
Sure. Thanks, Anando. So my experience was also again really good with the entire process. Again, 3 panelists. So my interview started with my profile. I had done an internship in our development project. So the faculty member from the civil engineering department, I am from civil engineering background, he was present, as well as the alumni who was present had a background in civil engineering. So they went pretty deep into exactly the kind of work I had done and what impact it had created. And most importantly, what were my learnings that I took away from the internship I had done. So they went pretty deep. They asked me a lot of questions, even from the entire industry at an industry level. After that was done, there were some technical questions based on my subjects that I had done during my undergrad, which were fairly basic. Anybody who has been consistent with the academics will be able to answer them. And then the conversation moved more towards my hobbies, what extracurricular activities I pursued, and why I was interested in them. They were basically trying to figure out what I brought to the table. So it was a pretty good experience for me. Again, like Anando mentioned, it was a conversation. There was no drilling. There was no stress interview kind of situation that was happening there. They gave me enough time to articulate my thought, to speak freely, and to really put forth my best self. So I think it was a great experience for me.
Great to hear that. Okay, so before we move on to the next question, we will have a couple of questions from the audience. So here is one of the questions. So I am a GEM from NIT Surat. So 10 CGPA in 10th, 80.4% in 12th CBSE, 97.98 percentile in CAT. So do I stand a chance to get a PI call from SJMSOM? So it's 97.98 percentile in CAT, 10 CGPA 10th, 80.4 percentile in 12th CBSE.
Right. So I think I will take that question.
Sure.
So as of now, the calls are entirely dependent on the applicant pool. And since the applications are open, we first need to see the whole applicant pool and how the profiles are distributed. So as of now, nothing can be said. But I would advise you to go through public forums and form an opinion, although we cannot say for certain that they are indicative of what is going to happen. So, but I would definitely ask you to consider applying.
And just to add on to that, see, in cases like these pertaining to your specific profile, while it's difficult to gauge what the outcome will be, we definitely encourage you to apply first. The entire applicant pool is dynamic year to year, so we cannot gauge it beforehand. But please do consider applying.
Okay, one more question. So I think everyone will be wanting to know the answer. Does SJMSOM accept only engineers?
So, okay, I think I can take that again. So it's not like we only accept engineers, we accept people from all branches, but we do have a criteria that mentions a minimum of 4 years of undergraduate education must be completed after 10+2. And we have separate tracks there. We have had people from architecture, we have had people from MBBS background as well, and people from BCom background as well. But for BCom, you just need to have a master's degree or a professional certification completed, which includes CA, CS, ICWA, CFA. So you can, for more details, you can head over to our website, som.iitb.ac.in. But it's not like it's only open for engineers.
Sure, that helps actually. Okay, so we'll go on to the next question. And I think Ananda, you can take it up, and Souvik, you can add to it if you have to add something. So, what is the significance of the "tell me about yourself" question, the introduction question that is asked by the panelist to you? So that is the first question mostly in most of the interviews. So, how much significant is that question?
Right. So this is a question which is asked most frequently, and I think it makes sense because through this question you can actually drive forward the interview. This is the question which you're expected to be most proficient with, and I know many people actually rehearse the answers to this, and it actually comes across when they say about their profile. It actually comes across as they have memorized it. While I'm not saying you should not memorize it, you should be actually thorough with it. Bring forward the points in your profile which you actually want to highlight and showcase. Not only that, you can use these points to drive forward your interview. Otherwise, the interviewer will have a blank page. He can ask you anything from anywhere. But if you can actually make the interviewer interested in your profile through your introduction, and this includes everything from tonalities, voice modulation, to actually highlighting the specific points in your profile, this single question can drive your interview forward. The projects you mentioned, your work experience,
Right.
and even maybe where you have thrown up in. I think Shaw, we can shed more light on this.
Yeah, just to add on to that, see, think of it this way. This one question, if you get right at the beginning of your interview, then you're extremely lucky because the interviewer has put the power into your hand. Now you are behind the steering wheel. You can drive the interview, like Ananda said, just the way you want it to. You can exactly highlight your strongest points and make sure that the interviewer knows about the best parts of you. So, treat it that way. And yeah, I completely agree with Ananda. Don't memorize it to a point where it seems rehearsed. Be genuine and very authentic with your answer and put forth your best self. That will be my advice.
Sure, sure. Okay, so next question, Souvik, you can take it. So, what are the kinds of questions that a fresher can expect in PI? I think a part of it is already covered in some of your answers before, but yeah, so let's cover
Okay.
the question.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I'm a fresher. I joined SOM as a fresher. So, see, as a fresher, since you don't have prior work experience, the areas to focus on would be first and foremost what you have studied in your undergrad. You are expected to be on top of it, at least the basics you are supposed to be very comfortable with. So, please ensure that you do that. At least go through all your subjects once and make sure that you plug in gaps if there are any. Apart from that, you are expected to have a basic understanding of events that are unfolding around you. See, this is common to people with WorkX or without WorkX. But yeah, broadly, these are the areas you can expect questions from. There's one more area, which is the extracurriculars that you have done, if there are specific initiatives you've taken, what you have done during your undergrad days to build your profile and to showcase that there's more to you than just your academics. That also matters, so try and be on top of these three areas, and I think you will be in a very good position for the interview.
Right. You want to add something?
Right. And yes, so I have a background in mechanical engineering, as I already mentioned, and I believe many out there might have a background like me. And
You
almost
want to add
always
something?
in the panel, there would be someone who has a mechanical background. So, as Souvik mentioned, there are some subjects in UG which you absolutely need to be thorough with which in our case is thermodynamics, fluid mechanics, and IC engine, strength of materials, and kinematics. And you need to be very thorough about these subjects. And also, one thing Souvik missed out, I guess, is statistics. That's an integral part of engineering as well as your MBA life, and this thing would be needed throughout. So you need to be on top of all these subjects if you are a fresher. And also in some colleges, they have a major project or a term end project. So if your college has that, you need to know the nitty-gritty details about everything. Added to this and the dynamic GK and the static GK, you need to have opinions about your UG subjects and how they're connected in a business aspect to the real world. So that's what the interviewers will check when they actually ask you questions as a fresher.
Right. Sure. So the next question is kind of similar. So What kind of questions can someone with prior work experience expect in PI?
All right,
Yeah,
I'll
sure.
start with this. So, see, only difference is if you have prior work ex, then the panelists are perhaps more interested in what kind of work you have done and what is the impact that you have created in your workplace, wherever you have worked. We are not we are not students with WorkX, but based on the conversations we've had with our seniors as well as our peers, we've understood that any initiative you've taken in the workplace that differentiates you, any project you've undertaken that where you've made a significant impact, which shows you in great light, all of those are great talking points during the interviews, and make sure that you bring them up. So when you're talking about your experience during your last stint at your workplace, make sure that it's not only based on what work you did, but what is the impact. It's very important to quantify the impact you created and what exactly changed as a result of it. What value did you bring to your client as a result of it? So these are the areas I think you can focus on and drive your interview that way. Ando, you can add on to this.
Yes, I have a point that these points are with respect to people and their teams and their work experience, what they have done in their projects. But there's another aspect to it. The interviewers often are interested in the company, where you are well versed with the company's financials, their business vision and mission, where they're headed, where the whole industry is headed, that specific company that you have worked in, whether you are well versed with that and whether you have opinions about that. So they would want to know the same. So my advice to work professionals would be very proficient with the company's financials, the company's history, and the industry overall, how the industry is heading, where the industry is headed, who the main competitors are. So yeah, that's one thing they need to be absolutely aware of.
Yeah, that actually makes sense. Before we go to the next question, I'll take up a few more questions from the audience. These questions are mostly whether they stand a chance to get a call from SJMSOM. So, 99.20 percentile GEM, ACADS 92, 82.31, 78, work experience 16 months. What are the chances to get a call from SJMSOM?
Okay,
As I've already
so
mentioned, the
Right, right.
applicant pool is dynamic. So right now we cannot say. You can look in public forums. There are data available which might be indicative, and you can take your call. But if you ask from our personal experience, we would just suggest that you apply. It's better to just apply and then know your shot instead of just
yeah,
assuming that you don't stand a chance.
definitely apply. Definitely go ahead and apply.
Sure. Okay, so let's go to the next question. Uh, so normally the preparation is first CAT and then you suddenly change your preparation to PI preparation. So how is that change like? So post CAT, how does the preparation about PI as a whole go about? Because in CAT we normally don't indulge into things that we are supposed to know for the PI. So how is that preparation taken?
Can I start with this, Souvik?
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
So in the MBA journey, the cat is just half of the game. And if you notice the what cat actually tests you about, it's VRC, LRTI, and quants. And these basic blocks actually form the fundamental understandings of the subjects which you would be expected to study and deal with in your MBA life. For example, making sense of data or reading about cases. So even while preparing for CAT, it would have been my advice to students to actually start reading business newspapers, The Economist, so that they're actually aware of what's going on in the business world. But nevertheless, even after CAT, they can start it. And my advice would be to start with FinShots, The Economists, and LiveMint, first and foremost, to know about what's going on. And I think Shovi can add something more.
Yeah, sure. So first of all, it's a very broad question and a long journey to summarize, but I'll give it a shot. So there's several aspects you need to focus on. Like we already said that you should be on top of your undergrad subjects, but apart from that, as Ananda mentioned, certainly some knowledge of the business landscape definitely helps. It showcases to the panelists that you're genuinely interested in business, which is something they look for. Also, apart from that, any major current affairs event that's going on in the country or even internationally, you should ideally have an opinion on it and back it up with facts and figures. If you're aware of them, then that's extremely that's ideal. So make sure you start reading newspapers as early as possible. That will put you in a very good position. Make sure you read the editorial sections of newspapers. That is something I personally did, and it helped a lot. And just if you're somebody, this is also something perhaps we haven't covered, but if you're somebody who perhaps feels that they are not very comfortable with articulating or communicating effectively, then that is also an arena you can focus on, and make sure that you are able to articulate your thoughts in a proper manner in front of a panelist. So yeah, these are some areas you can focus on.
And for myself, I would like to add what I followed post-CAT was I maintained a journal where I used to note down specific pieces of news which pertain to my interests, which was automotive industry and the automobile industry in India. So I used to note down the news related to that and also facts and figures. And apart from that, the budget would be coming out soon, and that is one thing every B school panel is very interested about. And they would ask you questions from the budget which pertains to your profile. It won't just be a blank open-ended questions about the budget, like tell me 10 things about the budget or what really happened in the news. It would be something pertaining to your profile. So my advice would be to maintain a journal and just go over that and revise that so that you are well aware of the facts about the business landscape and these happenings.
Okay, there's one more thing I can add is that when you're going through your profile, just have a look at your profile from a third person perspective to see that what kind of questions can be formed from your profile. Let's say you did a project somewhere or you did an internship somewhere. So make sure that you go to the very depth of it. Make sure you understand exactly what your role was and exactly what the impact was. So these are very minute details, but make sure you question yourself. When you do that, you tend to come up with better perspectives on things you did not consider previously. So that is
facts and figures you're putting, you should know it to the core. For example, in my profile, I had that in class 12th, I had organized a football tournament. And in one peaceful interview, it was not SJMSOM, I was asked to provide the financials of that tournament and do a guesstimate. So you should be very thorough with whatever you're putting on your profile.
Yep, sure. Yeah, so answer was very detailed. Thank you for that. I am sure that it helped out the audience out there. So moving on to the next question. So it's a very good question. So suppose you are faced with a question whose answer you do not know. So how do you tackle that situation? Yeah, you both can give your views. I think this will help out people out there.
Ananda, should I take it first?
Yeah, you can take it.
All right. Yeah, so it's a tricky position to be in, definitely. I understand that it can be a little stressful in that particular situation, but my personal view is that if you don't know the answer to a particular question, it's better to state to the panelists that you cannot recall it at the moment, or that you are not familiar with that particular question, instead of beating about the bush, so to speak, because the panelists are extremely experienced, they're very intelligent, and they can understand when you know the answer and when you don't know the answer. So it's better to stick to the point and tell them that, okay, you don't know the answer to that particular question. It's completely all right. In our experience, it's completely fine. And what it does is saves time. It gives the panelists an opportunity to perhaps move on to a question that you do know the answer to, that you can provide some valuable insights on. So it's better both ways. It's not at all something to be scared of. It's very normal. It has happened to the both of us, I think. And it's okay. It's completely fine. Just be straight to the point and tell them that, you cannot recall it at the moment, and that you'd like to move on to a different question, perhaps. Ananda, you can add on to it.
I think you covered most of it, except the part that the interview is not meant to be like an exam where the panelists are actually asking you questions and you are meant to know every answer. They just want to gauge you on how you react to situations. So it's absolutely fine if you don't know the answer to any questions, as long as you're being honest about it, not beating about the bush, coming straight to the point. And like the way I used to deal with it was, I used to say, sorry, I think I should have known the answer, but right now I cannot recall it. So you just admit straight away and give chance to move on to other questions.
Sure, definitely. So yeah, next question. What should one do if the interview turns out to be a stress interview by any chance?
Souvik, should I take it?
Yeah, please go ahead.
So this wasn't the case for my SJMSOM PI, but in top tier B schools, I actually faced many stress interviews. The point of a stress interview, as we can recall from the previous question, it's not to actually answer every question that they are asking. It's actually to be presentable, be calm, and not lose your mind while they're probing you. They just want to see how you will react, and when you will lose yourself and actually say or just go blank. Going blank is one thing you should avoid. The way that I used to tackle stress interviews was I used to smile and I used to actually say that right now I cannot recall the answer. And that is totally fine, because there would be one point, because the interviewers are experienced and they know that they themselves are taking a stress interview and they just want to know the candidate better. So if you can pass that stress test, if you can not go blank and keep a calm demeanor and smile all the time, they will actually stop it at one point. Or alternatively, it should not mean that just because it's stress interview and you could not answer, that your interview went bad. The interviewer just saw how you reacted. Even though you did not answer all the questions, or maybe you reacted in a specific way, it does not mean that your interview was just not up to the mark. The interviewer, on his or her part, have made their decisions, which you will actually never get to know on what parameters they marked you on. So just don't have any preconceived notions. Just the first 5 minutes was a stress interview, so my whole interview went bad. No, don't think about that. This is absolutely normal. You will be probed, and I'm saying this, you will be probed in various panels, and the best way to deal with it is just maintain a calm demeanor and let it pass.
Yeah, just to add on to that, one little thing is that if in case you face a circumstance where you are feeling really stressed out and you feel like you're going blank, it's always a good idea to ask for some time. Just tell the panelists that, sir or ma'am, may I have a couple of seconds to gather my thoughts? It's completely okay, and I think they'll be more than happy to give you some time so that you can collect your thoughts and take another attempt at the question, rather than trying to go in a flow and saying something that you perhaps did not mean. It's always a good idea to ask for some time. So if you feel stressed, then that's always a good option to go about it. And I completely agree. Like Ananda said, just try and maintain your composure, have a smile on your face, and I think it should be absolutely fine.
Okay. Yeah. So we'll move on to the next question. So what does the panelist or interviewer specifically look while interviewing a candidate? So what are the factors you are evaluated on?
I think Souvik can shed some light on this.
Yeah, sure. So in my understanding, there are two things the panelists check when they're taking your interview. The first is your competency, and this can be across various domains. For example, how comfortable you are with the subjects you've studied, how much of a global perspective you have on business as well as socio-political circumstances in the country. So these are some areas they assess on. And the second thing that I have experienced is that they often try to judge whether you will be a right fit for the business school, whether you fit in with the values that the particular college has, or what it looks for in its aspirants. So it's always a good idea to be very authentic and put forth your thoughts in an articulate manner. It's Of course, it's extremely difficult to know exactly what parameters they're judging you on, but if I broadly classify, then these are the two buckets it can fall on. So Ananda, if you have something more to add.
No, you are right. And regarding SJMSOM panels, they actually look for the values whichever school actually believes in, which is innovation, leadership, and entrepreneurship. So we are not just looking for good managers. There are plenty of good managers out there. We want leaders and original thinkers, where people can actually take initiatives on their own and work on it. So our PI panels are actually mapped to the candidate's profile, and that is why you have an IITB professor, an MBA professor, as well as an alum with the same profile. So we are very much interested in your profile and not just the candidate overall, what he or she looks on a piece of paper. So yes, you would be judged on your knowledge and also your soft skills, so to speak.
Okay, sure. So we'll take the next question. So what are the do's and don'ts in an online interview? Maybe we can go by the do's first and then we can take care of the don'ts.
Ananda, would you like to go ahead or should I?
Yes, so there are several do's and don'ts that, like online hygiene checks that we call right now, that one should maintain. First and foremost, being a very good internet connection and being in a quiet room that is devoid of any noise and any disturbance, and the lighting should be spot on. You need to understand that in this age of virtual world, when you're looking at cameras, you're not having that feedback of energy that happens between the panelist and the interviewer. You do not have to shake hands, not opening your profile sheet or your anything in front of you. All these things are not happening. Your only source of contact with the panelists is the eye contact through the camera. So you need to make sure you are in a well-lit room, which is devoid of any noise. Look straight into the camera, maintain a calm demeanor and a smile on your face. This is very important because you need to understand the panelists are taking 15 to 20 candidate interviews one after the other and they do not have a break. So if you need to stand out, you need to showcase the energy that would come out through your facial expressions, so and also in your voice modulations. You need to make them interested in the way you are talking, the way you appear on the screen. This is very important, has worked for me several times, and I would advise everyone goes through these hygiene checks before appearing for an online interview. I think Souvik can educate more on the don'ts.
Yeah, I think the do's were very comprehensively covered. As far as the don'ts are concerned, one thing I can mention is that please always look at the screen. Try not to look here and there because it sends a wrong impression to the interviewers. This is something we have learned over a period of time. It's a very basic hygiene check because, well, of course, there is a gap between the interviewer and yourself, right? You're sitting at your home. Right. So it's extremely important that you look at the camera. If in case there are network issues at your end, it's extremely important that you tell the interviewers beforehand that you are facing certain issues so that there is no breakage between the interview as such. And it's not a don't, but ensure that you have backup power supply in case something goes wrong. Also ensure that there is nobody else in the room where you're sitting. It's completely isolated. Ensure that. And one more thing that it's a personal opinion of mine and something perhaps that will be of help to all of you is that don't think of it as an online interview. Think of it as a conversation that you're having. Don't treat it any differently. Don't treat it with complacency in any form. Treat it as seriously as you would if it were an offline interview. So, try and make that mental shift if you can, because even after you get into a business school, most of your classes, judging by the scenario it is right now, these will be online and you need to be very comfortable with dealing with virtual scenarios. So I think those will be some don'ts from my end and some general tips.
And also to add to that, there might be a lot of waiting in various panels across the top tier B schools. You might have to wait for a few hours also, and you have to wear your blazer and your formals. So that might get a bit uncomfortable at times, but do bear with it, because as Souvik mentioned, the whole world is moving virtual. Looking at the current scenario, even your placements and your other interviews will most probably be virtual. So you need to be very comfortable and accept that these might be the scenario. And also a small tip, people actually know if you're reading something from the screen or sticky notes around you. So it's best to avoid it and be yourself. As we mentioned, it does not matter if you don't know the answer, as long as you're honest and coming across, bringing forth your best self. So please avoid any of those, because the interview can actually understand. They have been in the virtual setting for almost 2 years now. In the online construct, they're aware of whatever can be done. So please avoid any such things.
Yeah, that helps. I think this was all the questions we had, but we have a lot of questions from the audience. We'll try to take them up as many as we can. So yeah, there is a good question here: how to prepare story for the GDPI? How to frame your story about how to, how to direct your interview.
I think this goes back to the question of why MBA, right?
Right. Yeah.
So just know this, that even though your profile might be similar to many others out there, there is always a story that each and every one of us has. You can actually ask yourself that why you actually want to do an MBA yourself and find out the answer to that. And if you do not have the answer to that, just arrange the pointers and the qualifications that you have on your profile in a chronological order and try to make sense out of them. For example, a simple Excel course that you might have done online might make some sense if you're weaving a story. So just arrange in a chronological order and try to weave some sense out of it, because everyone will come across with a chronological setting, but they won't be able to connect the dots. So So it's upon you and only you how you connect the dots. The coaching centers and mentors can only give you tips on how to do that. But exactly your story will be unique to yourself and you need to play to your strengths. Just because someone else has something else on their profile and you have 3 months, it should not be that you are doing that course just to have that thing on your profile. It does not make sense. It might not be your strength. So,
Right.
whatever you are interested in, arrange them in chronological order and try to weave a story out of that.
Yeah, just to add on to that, it's very important that you take some time out and you introspect and try and understand why exactly you took certain actions. Why is it that you decided to, let's say, pursue engineering, or let's say you pursued some specific course during your undergraduation, or you held a position of responsibility in your undergrad college. So, see, you must have done a lot of things, right? Till this point. So, as Ananda mentioned, write them down on a piece of paper and try to weave a story
Or
out of it.
maybe in a tabulated format in Excel, that will also help.
Definitely. Either way, whatever works for you, try to connect the dots and introspect a lot and try to come up with these answers. Why exactly you took an action and what has been the outcome out of it, and what do you learn? What have you learned out of it? So these are some general tips. Yeah.
And to add to that, this will be the actually the most important aspect of PI preparation. Others can actually just memorize static and dynamic GK, but you weaving your story around your profile, this will make or break the interviews. So spend a significant amount of time
Right.
realizing what you have done and connecting the dots. It's very, very important.
Yeah, sure. So we'll take up one more question. The next question is it okay to have a controversial tone or an informal tone during the interviews?
I'll take that one. See, when you say informal tone, there's a very fine balance between coming off as somebody who's informal and somebody who's very casual, right? So it's fine if you are witty and you land a joke once in a while, it's completely fine. But make sure that you don't treat your panelists like your friends and don't start chatting away, right? It's extremely important that even amidst, let's say, even if your panelists are very friendly to you and they are having a very calm friendly conversation with you, it's very important that you still maintain a semblance of professionalism in the way you answer. It's very important that you do that. As far as the controversial issue is concerned, see, it's my personal opinion that you should steer away from extreme opinions. Even if you hold a certain opinion, try not to make it too extreme and back whatever you have to say with very sound logic and facts. So that way, see, there can be controversial questions, but make sure that you don't get carried away and you hold your ground and stay logical till the very end. That's very important.
And also at times interviewers might make you too friendly or might make you too comfortable to actually see how far you can carry across your professional self. So it's very, very important to not lose track of that and actually always be formal. They're not your friends,
Right.
they're professors and alums at the end of the day.
Yeah. Okay, so the next question is based on last year's composite score cutoff, which was 36 for general, I am getting 33.5. Should I go ahead and fill the form or not? Think,
So
yeah,
last year's cutoff was based on the 2 hour CAT format. Yes. So for this year, it would actually depend on the dynamic applicant pool that we have. It might go down, it might go up. So we actually cannot say. I hope you understand the logic behind that.
right, yeah. Okay, so uh, like, can you shed some light on the placements or SJMSOM? Because like there are a few questions on the placements. I know that you might not be ready with the figures completely, but a little bit of maybe companies visiting or something that which might inspire our audience to actually to prepare for the interviews well and reach a college like SJMSOM.
Right, I think I'll take that up. So the placements this year, both for the summers and the finals, have been stellar. We have had many new recruiters as well as legacy recruiters participating, and the details are actually up on our website. I would request every one of you to go across to all our social media handles or our website to follow the same, and you will get all sorts of details over there. And you should not judge a school just by the placements, although I would say that this year we have outdone ourselves.
You want to add something, Souvik?
No, I think that's perfectly covered. Just make sure you, if you have any doubts regarding the placements, make sure you go through the placement reports that are on the website. I think you'll have all your answers right there.
Right, sure. Okay, so next question is there any ideal work-ex for SJMSOM? I know that both of you are freshers and you made it there. So just for the audience, is there any ideal work-ex that favors candidates in SJMSOM while they're applying there?
Sure, I'll take it up.
Oh,
So there is no such thing as perfect or the ideal work experience. Understand that whether you're a fresher or somebody who has, let's say, 4 or 5 years of work ex, you do bring something to the table. And whatever experiences you've had in your workplace, if you can talk about them in an articulate fashion, and if you can communicate what impact you have created, what value you have created, I think that is more than enough. The number of years you have worked is not as important as the quality of work that you have done. So ensure that you communicate whatever impact you have made at your workplace very clearly to your panelists, and I think they'll be more than happy to listen to the same.
I think the one who's asking the question might be more interested in knowing like whether an IT professional work is given more specific interest than someone with a core sector work ex. That is not the case. That is not the case at all. So just wait one second.
Yeah, just to carry his point on, so it's not that there is a specific kind of work-ex that is favored over other kinds of work-ex. Like I previously mentioned, even if you're a fresher, whatever experiences you've had, whatever initiatives you have undertaken, be very thorough with them. Be very thorough with the work that you have done, and I think you will be in a very good position. So there's nothing that we can say is ideal for SJMSOM. SJMSOM, I think, treats everybody on equal footing. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Okay, so I think these are pretty much the questions. If you have any, okay, I think we have one more question. Okay, so let's take this question once, and then we can go ahead to the suggestions. So I am a mechanical engineer, but have been working as a software developer for the past 16 months. Should I focus more on grad subjects or the work ex for the personal interview?
Ananda, would you like to take this one, or should I?
I think you can take this one.
All right, sure. So I think 16 months of work experience, right?
Yeah, 16 months
Right.
as software
16 months of
engineer.
work experience. Yeah. So regardless of that, I think of course you need to focus on both, but I will personally recommend that you first focus more on the work that you have done at your workplace and be on top of that. And once you are very thorough with that, then you can certainly move on to grad subjects. No, understand that it's 16 months is not as high a number where the panelists can completely forgive you not being very thorough with your undergrad subjects. So please ensure that you go through and revise all your subjects, but also at the same time, maybe you can prioritize your the work that you've done first. Yeah, so
Okay, we have one more question. So, how to tackle questions like how do you see yourself in the next 10 years? So, basically, your long term and short term goals. How to tackle questions like these?
So I think I will take that up. So it's true that such questions definitely do come up. You are asked your long-term and short-term goals. But understand this, even the interview knows that you are a dynamic individual and your goals are liable to change. What the interviewer wants to gauge through these questions are whether you have thought through your decision to pursue an MBA, whether you have actually connected the dots as you mentioned, and whether that story actually makes sense. So it's not actually imperative that you need to say something which everyone else is saying or something which is very ideal, but it should actually be logical and connected with your profile. It should not be something that's totally disconnected from reality. So if you have a question like this, go back to your profile, see what fits and what interests you, and actually align them with your professional goals. It might be leading a separate division of a company in maybe a sector that you're interested in, or it might also be doing some NGO work. So you need to find what interests you, what pointers you have on your profile, and align them.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Um, sure. Yeah, actually, yeah, that answer will help out the candidates because this is a question very often asked in interviews in one form or the another. Right? So I think before we end up, do you have any specific suggestions for the students who are preparing right now for their PI? I know this session has had a lot of information in it. Apart from that, if you have any tips that you want to give before we wrap up our session to the candidates who are right now going through the preparation. So yeah.
Actually, yes, I think I would like to start. I'm sure we can take over. As I mentioned, the CAT is an exam that tests your aptitude, and afterwards, the PI and all these steps before you join in B school actually test the candidate holistically. So it's absolutely imperative that you consider all these steps as something that adds value. Even though the case might be you might not convert your favorite B school, whatever you are preparing in these years or in these few months will actually add immense value to you and actually bring a change in the professional that you are. Objectively speaking, maintain a journal, study the dynamic and static GK, but that is not the most crucial part of the game. The most crucial part is framing the story. Why MBA? Tell me about yourself. Rehearsing them, but not to a point that it seems like you have memorized every part, and actually being jovial and energetic and making the interviewer interested in you. Try to think of it as a conversation, not like answering questions. Every time the interviewer is asking you something, he does not expect only the correct answer. He also expects you to answer it in a way that might give him sense of belief that, okay, this XYZ person would be good to work with or can work under me. So they're testing
Right.
all these things. So just knowing static and dynamic GK won't work. So focus on the soft skills a lot. And as I mentioned, the hygiene checks for the online world, because right now we're operating in a virtual construct, all these things are important. And I think so we can add more details on it.
Yeah, thanks, Ando. I think that was very well said. But also, I think, make sure you are enthusiastic about the process. See, please don't treat it as a chore or something that you have to go through. It's not like that.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you get to interact with very senior professors who are extremely knowledgeable, and they are extremely they're leaders in their domains, and that's an exciting prospect for you as a young individual. So please treat it that way. Make sure that every interview you walk in with a smile, and you showcase that you are actually excited to be there, and it's something that really excites you. That should come across in your answers. And apart from all the studying part that you will do, please try, it's an honest request, please try not to get too caught up with negativity surrounding whether you'll get a call or not get a call. See, these things happen, and it's very normal that you will perhaps get calls from some institutes may not call you, and that's completely normal. But make sure that whatever institutes you have, you give it your absolute best, you showcase enthusiasm, and you put your best self forward. That will be my final suggestion to the candidates. Yeah.
I think the last,
Also,
yeah.
the point that Souvik mentioned, that having a smile, one of my mentors actually told me, and I did not actually understand the implications and the importance of actually having a smile and what kind of a difference it can make. But after going through several B school interviews and also placement processes, I can actually tell that the way you're presenting yourself with your smile and your confidence makes a lot of difference. So please walk in with a smile and embrace the negativities that are there in your profile. Don't try to cover them up, and just be and present your true honest self to yourself.
Right. Yeah. I think the last two, three answers, they pretty much summed up what candidate needs to do at this point in time before their interview calls. Yeah.
There
Just
will
want,
always be an element of nervousness, but just know that things are not in your hand, and you might
sure.
try your best, but there are some things you just need to accept and just go in with a positive mindset.
Yes, please ensure that you maintain positivity. It's extremely important at this juncture. And take it from me, things will work out in the end. Things will work out.
Thank you so much, Anand and Souvik. This has been a very fruitful conversation, and I'm pretty sure the audience who have listened to it or are going to listen to this in the future, they are going to gain a lot, and I hope they make use of it and convert the calls that they get. So thank you so much for being here, and it was great to have this conversation.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Pramit, for having us.
Thank you,
It
Pranay.
was a pleasure.